50 years ago, one of the problems facing the church had begun to be solved. One of the teachings of the bishops of our church at the Vatican Council was the attempt to destroy this image of the Christian community as a tiered organization. When I was growing up, the Christian was the Pope, and then the cardinals, and then the bishops, and then the priests, and then the religious, and then the rest of us. It was a tiered, I think it was a spin-off of the sociology and the culture and the political life of most of Europe at that time, which was the king at the top of the community and everybody else layers going down. I think it was a sort of a copying of the political life of the community. But the fathers of the council insisted that the call to holiness is universal. It applies to every single human being, which has done away, or is beginning to do away, with the stratified levels in the church. Not happening real quick, but it's happening. The irony of this is, if you look at the first book of Genesis, God created us in His image to be like Him. And we, in the person of Adam, decided we wanted to be like God. And the way we did it our way, though. We took the forbidden fruit. That was what the tempter said. If you want to be like God, eat this. So the irony is that God wanted the same thing that we wanted, except we wanted to go about it in our own way. And that's been our problem down through the ages, of course, each in our own lives. God's way of making us in His image, of restoring us to His image, is by the implanting of His Spirit within us. St. John's Gospel. Jesus talks about, I will give you my Spirit. He will be in you or among you, depending upon the translation. But the church is enlivened. The Christian is enlivened with the very presence of God within. To begin with. It's not something we have to attain. It's something which has been given to us. And I think, especially in the Western world, we have a hard time with that. The church has had a hard time with it, especially around the time of the Reformation, because so many Christians said, well, the Spirit is within, we don't need the church. We don't need the community. And even Protestantism in its original pure source began to break up over that concept. The original reformers, many of them on the right track, in many ways, began to see their followers splinter off because everybody was enlightened by the Spirit of God, and so everybody went his own way. They gave up the community aspect of the presence of God among us. They only concentrated on the in us of the Spirit and not the among us of the Spirit. And our church, in revolting, in protecting itself, in denying that theory or theology, tightened up on the external controls. The community became, and the leadership of the community became, the dominant critique of life. We're at a point now, I think, where the church is beginning to realize that the Spirit of Jesus is among us as well as within us individually. Because we absolutely must have the community, whether it be the church, the family, the monastery. We have to have the community to critique the Spirit within us. Otherwise, where does the critiquing come from? From us. And we know what happens when we are guiding ourselves. And so over the centuries, the Spirit of Jesus has worked through the great church, through married life, the sort of the Ur community, through monastic communities, through the oblate community, which is a part of the monastic community. And that's what we celebrate when we celebrate oblate life. It's a way of letting the community critique our following of Christ. Because we are all capable, because of ignorance and stupidity and misinformation, if we only are guided by ourselves and call that the Spirit, we will not succeed in arriving at our destination, which is to be the image of God in our fullness. But we are called to let the community critique us by living in community. And we all know that this happens when you live with others. Whether you like it or not, whether you intend it or not, you will be critiqued. You will be corrected. You will be ultimately guided if the Spirit is working within the community and within the individual person. And so as we celebrate oblate life today and the life of St. Benedict, we remember historically that what he did was, in a very, very disruptive time, call together a new form of Christian living so that Christians could grow in the image of God with the people with whom they live. I think part of the turmoil in our church right now is that we're beginning to face the fact that the Spirit isn't as contained as we assumed the Spirit was, in authority, in rules, in regulations, in this, that, and the other thing. But now the Spirit is manifesting the Spirit's self within us. And there's that tension with the community who thought they had all the answers, and Christians who are beginning to realize that the voice of the Spirit is within. So we have a lot to be thankful for when we celebrate St. Benedict's Day, because he was the originator of a new community in the church, which at his time was so necessary because of the turmoil of the external culture and the external community. And we rejoice in each other that we will be able, with God's help and the Spirit's influence, to live together in Christ, according to Benedict's way in our case, and ultimately to arrive at that destination, which is our full incorporation into the Trinity, which has been the goal of God all the time. Let us be grateful for each other and St. Benedict.